Well, my friends, we are only 20 days out from the election, and Kamala Harris, she's given up on having any policies or saying anything substantive whatsoever. Between you and me, I think Kamala and the Democratic elite were banking on Trump either being in prison or being in the grave by now. I hate to say it. Kamala Harris did a radio interview today where she was asked about reparations, and she actually said, well, we're going to have to study it and look at it.
Well, first of all, on the point of reparations, it has to be studied. There's no question about that. And I've been very clear about that position.
Every time Kamala Harris opens her mouth, it's an utter calamity. We are in the 11th hour, sweetheart. You're one heartbeat away from the presidency. You're 20 days from the election. How do you not know where you stand on reparations? You're a 60-year-old woman. You say you were a district attorney, attorney general, and senator. If I ever went to court, I would rather have my cousin Vinny represent me instead of Kamala Harris. I'd rather have Better Call Saul than Kamala Harris. And I love how Kamala's like, I've been very clear on that. Kamala, you're about as clear as a mudslide. And something no one's asked you yet, maybe they'll ask you on Fox News tomorrow, what about these allegations against your husband? We're looking down the barrel of having Chris Brown as the first gentleman of the United States, Doug Chris Brown Imhoff. At least when we see Kamala Harris wearing a hockey mask, we'll know why. Can you just imagine for a second Kamala Harris and her vice president, Mr. Jazz Hands Tim Walz, negotiating with Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, President Xi? I'm not sure I trust them to run the table because Kamala, she's going to be like, well, I grew up a middle-class kid. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they're like thing one and thing two. They also remind me of Karen and Jack from Will and Grace. They're going to sit across from world leaders and try to negotiate peace? I don't think so. Now, 20 days out from the election, the folks over at MSNBC are melting down. If we look at Morningwood and Mika, they're not handling this very well because Kamala's numbers, they're underwater. Now, like I always say, I'm not owned by the RNC or the DNC. I've never taken a dollar from the Trump campaign or the Kamala campaign, obviously. The only thing I'm beholden to is the truth. And the truth is, yes, a lot of the mainstream liberal media, they are melting down over the thought of another Trump presidency. If the mainstream media did their job, I wouldn't have to sit on here every single day and give you guys the facts, but they've been carrying water for Kamala Harris for years, and especially since July 21st when she was slotted in. And you guys know I call it like I see it. I'm not saying Trump's a perfect person either. He'd be the first one to tell you he's not perfect and has some flaws, but they're freaking out because he stopped his event last night to play some music because people were fainting and passing out. Now look, I can't get mad at Trump about this because we have the exact same playlist. He's listening to Ave Maria, Sinead O'Connor, The Village People, YMCA. I like the playlist. Now, if I'm being perfectly candid, when I saw Donald Trump on stage playing music with Kristi Noem, I was just happy Kristi Noem wasn't backstage taking out any dogs. You can't please the mainstream media. They're upset when Kristi Noem is dancing on stage, but they're also upset when she's unloading a Glock on the family pooch. The last thing I'll say is this. Kamala Harris, she has had years to introduce herself to the American people. She coasted as VP when she was put in charge of the border. She oversaw the worst immigration crisis in American history, and she went about 1,200 days without visiting the southern border. Joe Biden, he has been in obvious decline for years. Even before he ran in 2020, we could all see something was up. Kamala could have come out strong the last few years and said, here's who I am, here's what I believe in. But now we see Kamala Harris is just a vessel for the Democratic elite and the donor class. And don't cry for me, Argentina, Miss Kamala Harris, because you've had opportunities recently on several television shows to lay out how you are different from Joe Biden. That's what independent voters are waiting to hear from you. And you have failed to articulate any differences. On The View, you said, well, nothing really comes to mind. All right, my friends, thanks for liking and following. Drop a comment. Tell me how you feel about everything going on. I will be back tomorrow giving you the news that you're not going to get in the mainstream media. And like I always say, I always welcome an open dialogue on my page. You can agree, disagree with me if you're from the left, the right, the middle. Everybody is welcome on here. It's come one, come all to the Halloween ball. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.